Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of HCS Matters. I'm John Wright, the Public Relations Director for Hardin County Schools, and recently in our community we had a community conversation with folks from Lincoln Trail District Health Department and Hardin Memorial Health regarding vaping and its consequences to our young people, and we just felt so moved by that after sharing and listening to that conversation that we felt we needed to have a more in-depth conversation with the Lincoln Trail District Health Department, and Melissa Phillips is here from the Lincoln Trail District Health Department. And first, thank you for coming in and for sharing your knowledge with us. We appreciate you guys. I guess tell us, first of all, obviously a lot of correlation between tobacco use and vaping, obviously some similarities, some differences. So let's talk about the similarities between vaping and tobacco.
Actually, vaping, the e-cigarette, was created as an alternative to the cigarette, a non-combustible cigarette, because they knew there's a lot of other chemicals when you burn tobacco. So it's a relatively new product in our country. Developed in about '07, didn't make it over here until about 2011. So only about a decade of this product in our country. But
it's still a fairly a new product, as you said, and something I remember, Melissa, from the conversation as we taped this a couple of weeks ago last week, was that there's really not enough data to compare and see what it's doing to those who use the product.
And that is true. You know, with cigarettes, we've had decades of research. And we know it takes a long time for the cigarette to affect the body. Mm-hmm. As with the e-cigarettes, we only have a decade, so there is no long-term data yet. There are a couple of studies being done now, but we know that, yes, they have fewer chemicals than their traditional cigarette, but the chemicals that are there can be very harmful. And
Dr. Godfrey and you as well, and the other lady that presented, talked a lot about the commonality between them is nicotine.
Correct.
Talk about how that is, how nicotine, and we've known it for years, but how is it harmful to us?
Especially for youth, which is kind of our focus with the conversations that you mentioned. Nicotine literally rewires their developing brain. So we know that brain continues to develop until about age 25. So when you introduce an addictive chemical like that, you create addiction at a really young age. And Dr. Godfrey did point out in his part of the presentation that I don't think people realize how addictive nicotine is. They rank it right up there with heroin for how addictive that it actually is.
So, and I think for years, and I know I did, and probably until last week in that conversation, was I just thought it's cigarette, it's the draw of it, so to speak, and I thought that's just the tobacco portion was addictive. But I'm hearing the common denominator between a vape and a cigarette or tobacco is that nicotine piece, and I guess just maybe talk about how that's been maybe a misnomer for a long time.
I think with the vapes, a lot of people, and especially our young people, they don't understand that they contain some amount of nicotine. And because these products are not regulated, and the FDA does have the power to regulate them, but that moves really slowly. So we won't see a lot of what they are able to do until next year. But sometimes these products are labeled and they have 0% nicotine. But when you actually take that product and test it in the lab, it usually 99% of the time has some amount of nicotine in it. And that nicotine's what keeps them coming back. It's what keeps them using. So, you know, with our young people, initially, oh, it's fun, it's cool, there's all these wild flavors, my friends are doing it, but after a while they're hooked. And now they have to do it.
So we'll get into you brought some apparati, or whatever the plural term of that is. You brought some of those with you, and we'll get into those in a second. But you know, we talked off camera about, you know, who's going to be seeing, what's the target audience for this? You know, it's probably adults. So in seeing what are some things that parents can look for when they may suspect their child is vaping, or they may look for things that, hey, is my child into this? What are some signs or some symbols that parents can look for?
This is actually one of the slides that I did not get to do that night, so I'm glad you asked this. First of all, don't ask them if they use e-cigarettes, because kids don't equate vape and e-cigarettes, so you got to use their language.
Even though they're the same thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just not in their language. Okay. So, and we learn this, we do a survey with kids through the schools called the KIP survey. And when they first added that question, they asked kids if they use e-cigarettes, and we got a lot of no's. And so a light bulb went off with the researchers, and the next year they asked, do you vape? And the answers were very different. So we learned, we're not using their language. Okay. So parents, I want to show you probably the most common one, and that's the Juul. And I'll let you.
Sure.
Very small, very sleek, very appealing to kids. And because it's so small, very easy to hide. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know what you're looking at, you might think, well, that's just a flash drive.
I was going to say, it looks like a bigger flash drive or bigger mm-hmm. thumb drive for my computer.
And in schools, a lot of schools, kids get Chromebooks, or they get iPads that they can use at school. Mm-hmm. Well, the charger for these is just a little tiny magnetic part. So if I have this plugged in to my school-issued device, if my teacher doesn't know what I have, I could be charging my device right there in the classroom.
So this can plug into a USB mm-hmm. port on a home computer, on a school computer, etc.
Exactly.
Okay. So why do, and I know you've got more to say about this, why are they allowed to market things like this? I guess because it's so new, I guess.
Well, there are regulations for other forms of tobacco on ways that they can market. That does not exist for the vaping products. Yet. Okay. Exactly. Okay. It should be coming. So they literally have taken the playbook from cigarettes and are marketing in all the same ways. Okay. I actually have a video that we use on our website, and it's two little girls, middle school age, sitting there in their room, doing homework, talking about boys, charging their Juul on the laptop as they gossip. So you don't even realize they're advertising the Juul until the girl pulls it off and takes a hit.
So is it fair to say that are there odors, are there smells when with a vape?
Another sign for parents, if you start to notice that your kid's kind of secretive, I don't want you in my bedroom, I don't want you touching my backpack, because there are a lot of, and I didn't bring my backpack over here, a lot of slots on backpacks that were intended for rulers or pencils or pens, and that Juul fits really nicely in there. So, I'm just coming back and forth with my backpack. Mom and Dad don't know I have that slid in one of the pencil slots. So if they've become very possessive about their stuff, that could be a red flag. If they're wearing hoodies, we had 90-degree temps for a really long time. And if your kiddo is still wearing the big, heavy hoodies, they might be trying to disguise that they're vaping. Because these devices, unlike their predecessors, they don't put out the great, big, huge clouds. So it's very easy for me to exhale into the neck of my hoodie or into the sleeve of my hoodie, and you don't even realize I'm doing it. Right. And then you mentioned the smell. A lot of them, it'll be a fruity smell, but there's usually like a chemical after effect. Okay. I know when I'm around somebody who's vaped, I can feel that chemical effect in my throat and in my nose just as a bystander. Okay. So if you notice that kind of fruit or chemical smell in their bedroom, or if they're a driver in their car, that could be another red flag.
That I know that a lot of people who smoke tend to maybe try to, and I don't smoke, so they tend to maybe try to hide the smoke smell or whatever. Are students or are children doing that when they use these products? Are they maybe if you see an increase in the number of Lysol cans that you're buying or something like that?
I don't see that as much.
Okay.
I honestly don't think kids are that worried about the covering up. More so with mom and dad than in the school setting.
Okay.
But another tip I wanted to give you, a lot of times well-meaning relatives will give kids Visa gift cards for holiday special occasions. You know, it's a wonderful thought. They can get whatever they want for that birthday or Christmas or whatever. But when you do that, that opens them up to the entire internet. And that's a lot of where kids are getting these devices, because most of these sites, all you have to do is click a box, yes, I'm 18, and you can get in the site and get whatever you want.
Right.
So, you know, if you've noticed that they had gift money and now it's gone and they can't explain where it went, they could have bought the paraphernalia.
You mean somebody wouldn't lie that say they were 18, right?
Yeah,
Believe
I
it or
mean,
not.
You know, this 14-year-old that says, are you 18? Well, sure I am.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about this too off camera, Melissa, is that, you know, this is not a quote unquote bad kid problem, or a maybe somebody who doesn't make good grades, or somebody who is in a certain clique. This is a all kids problem. There are a lot of what you may think is a good kid, and to me, in my mind, all kids are good kids. But what you think, quote unquote, is a good kid, this is a problem in their clique or in their group, in their peer group as well.
When the products first came out, honestly, it was what we consider the good kids that had these products, because they were pricey and they had access.
Okay.
Now it's more universal. We kind of see them through all the different social groups. But yeah, when they came out, they were your scholars, they were your athletes, they were not the kids you typically look at as your troubled kids.
Right. So, and in talking about the marketing piece, and I heard you all say this in the conversation, I guess when I go in a convenience store, I'm so focused on either buying gasoline or getting a newspaper, a bottle of soda, that I'm not aware of these type things, and of course I don't use them. So, but those type products are at eye level for students, and they're very marketable right in convenience stores, right?
And I would encourage folks, I'm hyper aware of it because this is what I do.
That's what you do, right?
But take a look before you even go in the doors at how many of their posters and stickers are in the windows. Then once you get inside, look at where the products are placed, because these companies actually pay a premium to have their products placed in certain places. So yeah, they're right there on the countertops next to the chewing gum, you know, and kids see that every time they go in there to buy a soda or whatever.
I heard you say the other night that a huge percentage of high school sophomores have said, and that's typically 15, 16 years old, have said that they have vaped. But I'm sure that number is, or that the age is probably decreasing on the number of students who is. So students are probably vaping, or children are probably vaping at an even earlier age now that it's so accessible.
I have been told as young as 4th grade,
wow,
they have seen students with these devices. So probably last school year, we really started seeing a lot more of it in middle schools, but it's very prevalent in the high schools.
Mm-hmm. And we're not, you know, we're having this discussion, and you all had this discussion last week. It's not a, you know, the vaping industry, it's not we're going after the industry. It's we're trying to prevent youth from becoming addicted to it at such an early age. You know, at 18, hey, you're able to do, I guess, what you would like, but while you're still under parental control and still under school control, we want you to be safe, and this is the best way to do that, is just prevent it.
Exactly. There is a law in Kentucky. You have to be 18. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we're just following the law. All our schools have policies, and I want to congratulate Hardin County Schools. You all have an excellent policy that's well enforced. It's well publicized with all your new signage. So kudos on that. There's still an enforcement problem, I think. You know, our school resource officers, our principals, okay, we've taken it, now what? So that's a piece we still have a little bit of work to do on, but we're really trying to get our educators educated as well, so you know what you're seeing in the schools.
So what are some other, and you talked about it in your presentation, and you touched on it, maybe, blowing into their sleeve or blowing into their hoodie or whatever. What are some other ways that our kids are hiding this? Well, let's try to think like a kid here for a second. How are they pulling one over on us here when they're using these products?
Well, I will tell you that even though the industry will tell you these products are designed for adults and only should be used by adults, they are directly marketing to kids, and they have adapted the devices to entice kids. So one of the ones that I showed at the conversation is there's actually now a device that looks like a key fob. It's got the push button where you push it, your key pops out. You hang it from your keychain or a lanyard. So if my kid had this device, I wouldn't be certain, what they had. But on this one, push the right button. When I push the button, this is where I attach my cartridge, and now I have a vaping device. Another one I think that really shocks people is the one that looks like an Apple Watch or Fitbit, some of the larger Fitbits. It tells time. So if my kiddo has this on their wrist and I'm not aware of what they have, they could be wearing it right in front of my face. But again, I push the button and my vaping device pops out.
Wow.
So, you cannot convince me that these are designed for adults because, like you said, it's a legal product for an adult. Why would they need to hide it like this? And then probably the one that shocks people the most is that there's now an industry called vapeware. And I didn't even notice it until now, but they've even got the cigarette stitched on the arm. Looks like a regular hoodie, right?
Yes.
So what they have done is there's a secret pocket in here. And one string attaches to my vape, and I can hide it away. And then the other string is how I puff on my vape. So if I'm a kid that chews on things, it's normal for me to have that drawstring in my mouth. So, yeah, vapeware.
Yeah, I looked that up on the, I Googled that while you all were talking about that, because I just could not believe that. Not that I thought you were making it up, but so I Googled it, and you're right, there's a whole line, and the models are younger people. They may be 18, but they're younger people that would certainly appeal to that. So you touched on something that maybe a year or so before we can see some regulations on that. So are federal officials looking at this? I guess just kind of update us on where we are on trying to pull back the marketing on this. 2016,
the FDA got the authority to regulate them like any other tobacco product. Okay. So like I said, it rolls out really slowly. Now you can't be in a vape shop if you're under 18. There's now a standardized warning label that has to be on all the packages. But things they haven't gone after yet are internet sales, which we kind of touched on.
But you can't buy cigarettes on the internet, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Flavors. There's no restrictions on flavors. If this is truly a device that's meant for adults, why do we need all these crazy candy dessert?
What was the one you used the other night? Unicorn?
One of the pictures I had up there, it was unicorn barf.
Yeah.
I've seen dragon's blood. I've seen banana butt. I mean, these are not marketed to us.
Sure.
Okay, these are marketed to kids, and they literally rip off packaging of things kids like. One of the ones that really bothers me, and I had it in my presentation, the e-juice bottle looks like a juice box. Again, that's not going to appeal to an adult. So legislation of flavors has been proposed, and I think that's an important step if we want to get them out of the hands of kids. That's some of the bigger ones that still have not rolled out yet. As it stands, these retailers are supposed to submit every single product for verification. So that means every single flavor is a product. So you can imagine the red tape there with all the paperwork that they're processing.
Sure.
I know that they have gone after Juul. There has been some FDA warning letters and things have gone after them. There's a couple other of the big companies that they have sent their warning letters and things. And then, at the federal level, it's been proposed that there be a ban on flavors. So we'll kind of see how that plays out.
A couple people have asked me and asked the district about, well, don't you all have smoke detectors in your schools? You have smoke detectors in your bathrooms to prevent. That was when people were smoking cigarettes. Those smoke detectors could sense that odor, could sense that smoke smell.
Right.
But those are useless against these type items, aren't they?
They are, and that's unfortunate because I know a lot of school systems spend a lot of money doing that, and they don't detect the e-cig aerosol.
We were just talking about how maybe this may be some sort of alternative to that tobacco cessation
I think
addiction.
There is potential there to use them as a cessation device, but it would have to be treated the same way we do nicotine replacement therapy. And until they are regulating these products and we know exactly what's in them and we know exactly how much nicotine is in them, you can't on your own use these as a cessation device.
There's been, obviously, we've heard in the news lately several deaths or illnesses related to vaping. They go back to vaping, but so tell us about how those illnesses and tragedies are taking place using those products.
I'm going to use my notes so I make sure I give you the correct numbers.
Sure.
They started tracking this at the CDC in August, so this is relatively new. This has been happening relatively quickly.
Sure.
We get a new CDC report every week if the numbers change. But as of the end of last week, there have been 1,600 cases reported nationwide. And that's just the ones that have been reported, so we're not seeing everything that's out there. And we've had 34 people that have died. We haven't had any deaths in Kentucky so far, but we have had 30 cases reported. 3 of those have been confirmed, and there's another 9 that they think will be confirmed.
Are people getting sick just because the way their body is reacting to the chemicals that are in the vape, or what's causing the death and illnesses?
They've given the condition a nickname. It's called EVALI, and that stands for e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury. And Dr. Godfrey did a really good job explaining this. Basically, this diagnosis is because we've excluded everything else. So this time of year, when we've got flu season starting and you have similar symptoms, it's hard because we have to rule out all these other conditions. And a lot of times doctors aren't asking that vaping question. Our doctors have gotten really good about asking, do you smoke? But haven't really got, into their repertoire, do you vape? So once they've excluded anything else and they've asked that do you vape question, that's how they decide if it's this EVALI.
So illness, death in some cases. Again, not trying to knock the industry. We're just trying to prevent those who are the 18 and younger in a forced law. So if you've got I guess what is some meaningful ways, and we've got about four minutes left, but what are some meaningful ways that parents can have that conversation with children about, look, this is something you do not need to get into the habit of?
My first thing would be a good role model. If you're smoking in the home or you're vaping in the home, even though it's a legal behavior for you, your children are seeing that. So please don't do that around your children. Start the discussion young. Like I said, 4th grade, we've had kids bringing these devices into school. There are a lot of good resources out there. The CDC has good resources.
CDC, Centers for Disease Control.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
No,
using
that's okay.
acronyms.
That's okay.
They can contact me. I have a really good handout that was developed by the CDC that puts all these parent resources in one place. But yeah, start young. Don't be confrontational, because then your child's not going to want to talk to you. So, you know, don't pick a time when there's 100 other things going on. You're already both stressed out. It might not happen all at one sitting. You know, it might take a couple of conversations. But, you know, don't count on them to get their information at school or from a friend or from the internet. You know, if you want them to have your opinion on this, it needs to come from you. Resources
are available on your on the Lincoln Trail District Health Department website?
Yes.
Okay. So.
And we also have a Facebook page that's dedicated just to tobacco. Okay. So if you have other tobacco questions, you know, if you're wanting to stop smoking or whatever, that's a good Facebook page to follow as well. Okay.
Well, Melissa, thank you for sharing your time with us. I know 30 minutes fills up quick, and there's probably more questions I could ask you, but for more information, they go to the Lincoln Trail District Health Department's website to find information.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Melissa Phillips from the Lincoln Trail District Health Department, and also, you know, from a Hardin County Schools perspective, Hardin County Schools, if a student is caught vaping, that is treated just like a tobacco offense, and that is outlined in our code of conduct. So, and that is available also on the Hardin County Schools website as well. So, we'd like to thank Melissa. We'd like to thank the Lincoln Trail District Health Department and Hardin Memorial Health for their partnership in trying to prevent students from getting into this habit that could cause harm to them in this deal of vaping. So, again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.